what is it about intimate relationships that cause so much trauma? Because I feel like when you think about trauma, the majority like of it centers around these intimate relationships, whether it's from childhood or just through our relationships that we're going through right now.
Excellent question, Brian. I think one of the things I think of in my way of thinking, kind of using a self-differentiation family systems model, which is kind of what I use to formulate problems and to formulate solutions for those problems. And when you ask a problem like that, what causes that kind of trauma? Typically, and I'm sure you're aware, some people are traumatized by X. Other people are barely traumatized by X. Why is that? What X is still X. I mean, but we are affected differently. And I think one of the main things to remember is that depending upon how enmeshed we are emotionally, often the more trauma results from that. And I don't mean closeness in a healthy way. I mean closeness in an unhealthy way. And that's what enmeshment is. When we're over close and there's trauma in the relationship, then we're really going to be hurt. We're really going to be, because we're not very self-differentiated. I'll give you the typical, another example of, I go into a department store, and I'm old, so I've got department stores. Rather than I go on Amazon, but I go into a department store, see the clerk, and she says, "Well, I just think you're a funny looking man." Well, that's, I'll take that as a compliment. Now, if your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend tells you that, now you're traumatized by it. Why is that? Because there's greater emotional enmeshment often going on, and often we will be hurt or traumatized, and so with that emotional enmeshment, which is what I work to try to help people begin to move out of, so that it doesn't mean I can never be hurt, but I'm not hurt in this way, I'm hurt in this way. And there's a big difference between this being hurt and that being hurt, a person and me, because I have some space between us. And so with that enmeshment, which is common for most families and common for most dysfunctional families, is an over enmeshment. It's an enmeshment of the whole family. And so when something goes wrong or something hurts or we're said, I don't love you anymore, then it can be traumatized. Or if we get cheated on and those kind of things. Not that being cheated on, you should never feel bad. That's ridiculous to not. Of course, that would be a very painful experience. But we know that the more unresolved enmeshment someone has from their past and with their family of origin, the longer it takes to get over the cheating spouse, the cheating boyfriend, it takes longer because we have all this enmeshment that we're dragging along. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know if that's helpful, but it is, I think, something to think about when it comes to trauma. And if there's a specific type of trauma you wanted to mention, I'd be happy to. You were talking more like relationship trauma. And
so what I'm hearing is that it's not necessarily just the event that's traumatic. It's the fact that you were close to that person and then the event happened. And it's like, I'm thinking about like the difference between a breakup of a friendship versus like your parent neglecting you. Like, it's like the closer the relationship, the more the trauma. Is that what I'm hearing?
And as long as you're using the word close in a not very healthy way, it's not close. We certainly want intimacy and closeness. But I can be close to someone and still be differentiated. In other words, I still have my own space, my own autonomy, my own individuality, but I care about you, I love you, and I am connected to you. Enmeshment's a different thing. That's where I borrow some self from you and you borrow some self from me. Now, if I get hurt by that person, yike. Now, and that's why I help people get away from the borrowing self and loaning self kind of problem that we have in relationships. You mentioned the that enmeshment or closeness. It is more likely that we will find more trauma as a result of the over-enmeshment and closeness we've had from past relationships, and particularly our family of origin, that we take into adulthood. And we take that level, and that, so the level of self-differentiation determines a lot about how affected you're going to be. Let's take a medical example. I'm run down. I haven't been drinking much water. I'm overly tired, and I'm stressed. I get near somebody and they have a cold. Am I likely to get the cold as well? Probably a good chance I probably will, because I'm already run down. The same is true in relationships. If I'm already have unresolved attachments from the past, I'm already run down. And then we get into relationships, and then we wonder why they hurt so bad, why we mess up, why we choose the wrong person, we end up with those kind of difficulties. And usually that's a good wake-up call when that trauma starts to happen and we experience it. I certainly can empathize with it, as I have gone through a number of traumas. I also know I have become more resilient to trauma and grief and loss and pain the more I have grown to be my true self and to have a healthy distance in my, I know the word I was trying to think of when you asked me about, if you're overly close, you may be traumatized more. And I think of that as your emotional location. If you're emotionally located here and you get traumatized, it's going to be awful. If you're here, you're probably not even going to care. If you're here, you're going to handle it in an adult, mature way. So you can be, too much of a good thing is always too much of a good thing. People come to me in marriages, couples, girlfriend, boyfriend, they all come and say, hey, we want to work on our intimacy and get closer, because all we do is argue. You know what I tell them? Oh, no. You're already too close. We need to help you separate a little bit, not from the relationship. I don't mean go find somebody else. I mean, we need to have your inner boundaries and your inner sense of self fortified and have some distance so that you're not triggered all the time by the other person. And often, if we are enmeshed, we're just going to be triggering each other like this all the time. Argue about this, argue about that, argue about that. And they go, we want to be closer, Jerry. And I go, that would be malpractice if I made you closer, if I even had the magic wand to do it. But that'd be malpractice. I want to help you get here, where you are yourselves, have some healthy space, emotionally, location-wise, and then you can have true intimacy. But true intimacy requires a healthy amount of distance or separateness. And most people don't know that.
What does that look like? Like a healthy amount of distance and like emotional separation? Because like what you just said is very contrary to what most people believe. Like they think, like you said, like we have to be closer.
The problem with the world is too much closeness, not enough. Now that sounds funny, doesn't it? It sounds like, well, doesn't everybody just love each other and do nice things for each other? No. The world's still a mess. And I realize that. I live in it and I'm a part of it. But actually what happens is it is our unresolved emotional attachment and enmeshment, our emotional glue that's back there in the past that we have not melted, that we now attach to you. Now I bring that here. And now when you go, well, honey, where would you like to go eat? Well, I'd like to go to a Mexican restaurant. Well, why do you always want to go to a Mexican restaurant? Can't we try something different? Honey, you just asked me where I wanted to go. Da 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 da. Why are they doing that? Because they are triggered down here. And they are too close, quote, in the emotional system. And too much closeness causes this reaction. And so we want a healthy amount where they go, well, you know, and here's a healthy response that indicates a more self-differentiation. Honey, I know you'd like to go to a Mexican restaurant. I asked you where we wanted to go, and you said Mexican, so you have every right to say that. And I understand that. You know, I was just thinking while you said that, though, I might like to go to another restaurant. Would that be okay? I'd like to go to Chinese, or I'd like to go to an American restaurant, or whatever, or McDonald's. And now we're not arguing over nothing. People who have trouble with enmeshment, which is very common, because you know where enmeshment begins? At the beginning of life. I mean, and it's healthy enmeshment. I want an infant to be enmeshed. I absolutely want that to happen. I want there to be a bond between mother and father and child. I mean, because the child has no sense of self in that, you know, and that's perfectly normal. But then as we grow and develop, now we want to move away from the enmeshment we had as infants, and then become more of a self in toddlerhood, juvenile, young adult, and it begins, and we have different tasks about becoming more emotionally separate. But separate doesn't mean I don't care or I don't love you. That isn't what it doesn't mean that at all. And in fact, I think it's harder to love someone if you're enmeshed, and it's harder to express it.
Yeah, I feel like what you just described is in a way like neediness. And like you said, yeah.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's like that enmeshment, like you need in those early stages, you need that with your parents. But if you have that enmeshment and that neediness, like I need you as like an adult relationship, those relationships tend not to work, right? When one person is extremely needy and is like they can't function without the other person in a way. What you're saying is that
Right.
you need to learn to be separate as a team.
Separate as a team. But if you haven't become separate, quote, as a team, though it's a little different with your family of origin, but if you haven't learned to be separate as a team with your family of origin, it's going to be quite a challenge to do that with an adult relationship, because it's going to keep bleeding in. It's going to keep leaking in. And then when your boyfriend sounds like your dad, and then when your girlfriend sounds like your sister that was always mean, or your mother who is narcissistic or whatever, then we have fireworks again. And again, our emotional location becomes too close. Then we can't be adults with each other. It's hard to be adults with each other when we have that kind of over closeness. And again, water is very important for life. Just don't drink 10 gallons of it in the next 2 hours. And many of the people I meet with are drinking way too much water and saying, we're still thirsty. And could you help us drink more water? And I'm going, no, it's the opposite of that. It will be the opposite. And then what I found is they actually find some real freedom and real sense of self, which then you can have intimacy. Because you can't have intimacy if the emotional location is this. Nor can you have it if it's like that. You have emotional intimacy when it's like that. And you have some space, you know who you are, but you are connected. And that's really what self-differentiation is. Being yourself while staying connected. That's easy to say, difficult to do.
Yeah.
It sounds very simple. It sounds and I wish it were. But it is how but oftentimes we get triggered because of our emotional location, our unresolved issues from the past just get triggered, and then that pours into the relationship. And then we're going, what's going on here? Why is my boyfriend or girlfriend treating me so badly? Why, what's going on? And we don't even realize how our reactivity is affecting the other person. We don't even see that part. So we don't see in a very systems way, in a feedback loop way. We're not trained to do that. We are trained to see cause and effect and see a little micro, and A causes B and B causes C. And that's not going to help you navigate relationships. That thinking will limit and then we'll stay stuck in the blaming game. Well, you just made me upset because, just like with the Mexican restaurant. Well, why do we have to go to the Mexican restaurant all the time? And the girlfriend or whoever says, well, you just asked me where I wanted to go, and I just told you. Why are you such a jerk? Blah, 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 blah. Now he's called me a jerk. Now I'm going to get more reactive. And I could go to, just as I gave some suggestions for the guy, for the girl, for example, or the partner, I might go, when he became reactive, why do we always have to go to a Mexican restaurant? Of course, he was the one who asked her. He started it. And so I asked her, why did you have to react to his reaction? What's in you that caused you to react to his reaction, rather than looking at him and saying, I'm confused. Honey, you asked me where I wanted to go. I shared that with you. You are now upset. I am confused. I don't know what that means. And if you notice, I'm staying over here. I'm not doing this and going, why, you jerk, you asked me what, blah, 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 and now we're doing this again. We're overlapped. We are overlapped. And if people can learn to de-overlap and actually become adults. That's what adulthood is, really. That's.
So is it safe to say that this enmeshment is almost the cause of these like unhealthy attachment styles, like the anxious attachment style or the avoidant attachment style or the disorganized attachment style?
I think that, and I like the language of attachment styles because I think it can be instructive. However, in some of the newer research, we're realizing now, attachment styles are not fixed. You can have an attachment style for that person and an attachment style for that person. I thought there was only one attachment style that the person had. No. It's fluid because the system is fluid. And if you think systems-wide, it's going to be fluid rather than just see attachment styles. If you think of them in its elementary way, it's a cause and effect kind of thing. If you look at it in a systems way, of course you could be avoidant with this person and overly attached with this person. You can be anxiously attached to this person and you can have a different attachment to that person because the system is always operating and always functioning in its own homeostasis, its own balancing act. And we balance with it. And so if you can see more of what's going on, just like if I can give an example, I don't know if examples helps but someone comes to me and says, oh, my mother drives me nuts. She may be a narcissist, I don't know, but she certainly is. She likes to guilt trip me. I feel guilty. from her. And I don't know what to do about it. It just drives me nuts. And that was my own, that was my own story as well. And because my mother, I just felt guilty all the time. I'm going, why am I, what? I don't care how old you are. I'm still feeling guilty. Why am I feeling guilty? And I'm an adult, for heaven's sakes, on my own, because inside we're connected to this system that we haven't resolved. And so they come to me, hey, how can I got to get rid of this guilt. I hate it. It's got to end. I hate it when my mother guilts me. I said, I imagine you don't hate when she guilts you. I imagine you hate it when you feel guilty. That's what you have power over. You can't make your mom not guilt you. That's just who she is. She's always going to do that. You can learn to not care. And that's inner boundaries, so that we have some inner boundaries and go, okay. And then when mom says, Jerry, you need to come visit me in the nursing home. By the way, she was well. Her mind was all there. And I visited her regularly, etc. People think, oh, I was treating her so badly. No, I took care of her for years. But we had I wanted a healthy relationship with her. Well, you need to visit me every day, Jerry. Well, I'm working a full-time job. It's hard to come here every day. And of course, it would be easy for me to feel guilty. Oh, my mother, I should be, what good son wouldn't be doing this? Only a bad son would not do these things. Of course, there's that narrative and story that's going on. And finally going, well, Mom, I know Stan and Janet visit their mom down the hall. Stan and Janet were in my graduating class. They're wonderful people. Their mother's a wonderful person. But that's their family. That's not our family. And no, I only want to come on Sundays. If you need something else, I'll be happy to get it for you or help you or whatever. And I may stop by other times. But that's what I want to do. Well, I just don't know why you can't do what they do. And I said, well, because I'm your bad son. And it's okay if I'm your bad son. I can live with that. Now, you may not live with that. You may not like that, but I think I can handle it. And now I can walk away without the guilt. She can think of me any way she wants. That's perfectly fine. She can think I'm selfish, unreligious, unspiritual, unloving. She can think whatever she wants. It's what I think about me that matters. It's not what she thinks about me. And I know I was a good son, doing good things, always doing the extra. And I'm not blowing tooting my own horn. Those were choices I made for my own moral decisions. So nobody made me do that. If I wanted to walk away from my mother, I could. But I also could stay if I chose to. That's up to me. And so the guilt factor of learning to let go of that guilt is so important. And it also provides that inner disconnection, that inner detachment that we need. Everyone needs greater detachment and more connectedness. Because if you're not detached, you don't have healthy connectedness. Because like you say, you're overly enmeshed, and that's not healthy. You're going to be more reactive. You're going to get mad more easily. You're going to be more triggered. You're going to be hypersensitive. You're going to be, and then when mom says, well, you need to do what Stan and Janet do, instead of going, oh, they're great people and I'm not a great person. No. My life is, they are retired. They sold a big farm, have lots of money. I'm still working for a living. They can come visit their mom every day. That's fine. I'm glad they do. But I'm me. I don't know how to change from being me. And I'm me. And so that I can learn to have those kind of boundaries internally with my family, which helps me set external boundaries Mom, I'm only coming on Sundays. But I may stop by other times. She had friends coming all the time. We have other relatives that come. So it's not like, I'm leaving her off in a field, uh, you know, in the wild to die of the cold. I mean, that's not what was happening. So it's learning how to get greater inner detachment, and that's kind of the work of self-differentiation, which I try to help people at all ages try to achieve.
Hmm. Something that you were talking about, or when you were saying that, something that I was thinking about was the fact that a lot of these like lack of boundaries, or even like this people pleasing thing, really stems from like a lack of confidence in yourself. Because I feel like the more insecure you are, the less likely you are to have those boundaries. Or you like when you're insecure, you feel the need to get that validation from other people. Like that example about your mom is a great example of that. How if you were insecure and you needed that validation, you would have just done whatever she said, right? And you wouldn't have
Oh,
those boundaries.
they wouldn't be. They weren't for decades.
Hmm. Well, that's how you probably learned. That's probably how you probably learned, and to the point you got then you could have those boundaries.
Right. And you're right. And even going even deeper with that, which you're right, having a sense of self-love and self-confidence, self-worth. And people ask me many times, well, how do I how do you learn how to love yourself? There's no way to learn it. The only way you do it is to start it. And people are always asking me how. You're asking a how question, and it's a when question.
Hmm.
It's not a how question. That's like saying, "Hey Brian, can you tell me how to breathe? I need to know how to breathe. Show me how to do that?" Either I breathe or I don't breathe. I mean, it's I don't know what the how part is going to help me. Well, you'd say, well, you need to kind of open your mouth and suck in some air. It's, and the same is true even about self-love. And I remember the first time I decided, because I'd had enough. And sometimes you have to hit bottom before you decide to change. We do, that is a thing about growing up. And I thought, hey, I've got to decide. Either I'm the guy they're saying. When I was pastoring a church, there was a couple that they just caused me so much trouble. Most people loved me and we had a great time, but they had grown up being abused by both their fathers. It's horrible. Well, guess who gets the leftover? Whoever is the father of the church, and so now you're the focus of our pain and all of that, and they didn't recognize that. And so we were talking about, and so I kept getting caught into, are they right or am I right? Am I doing something wrong? Should I be doing better? Am I treating them badly? What, who's right? And I remember having to decide. I have to decide. They don't have to decide. I have to decide. And I said, then I'm going to have to decide to care about me and love me. Not over anybody else, just I have to do that for me. I certainly can give and help other people, but am I going to help and give to me? And at that point, I decided I am going to love myself. And today is the beginning of doing that. I don't know all there is to know about it, but I'm going to use everything I know about other people loving other people to love me. And so I'm going to start applying that to me. And that was the beginning of, I can then go to them and say, I know you're upset with me and I don't know that that's going to change. And that's okay. And if you want to find another church, you can. If you want, that's perfectly your right to do. but I'm no longer going to respond to those things. And that may be frustrating for you. And of course, it was a big life-changing decision because I had just freed myself from the enmeshment with them. And guess who I had begun working on dealing with? The enmeshment in my own family of origin. Because it just follows you wherever you go. And the more clarity you can get, and that's what I help people in my coaching, is to get more clarity about their relationships and their life, we can make much better decisions, much more successful decisions, much more effective decisions if we have more clarity and a sense of detachment and real self, a real sense of self. And I think of self-differentiation or real self as like someone who has learned to become self-aware, someone who has learned to become self-regulated, and someone who has learned to become self-defined. And those are things that you work on, and you would be surprised how many problems get resolved when enmeshment, reactivity, and triggering goes down, and self-definition, self-awareness, and self-regulation go up. We're always focused on, well, my parents, and I was a family therapist for many, many years. My parents did this and my parents did that. And I said, no, I believe you. I believe they did. I think you're absolutely right. And that's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Now what? Okay, do you want him to go to the electric chair? What do we need to do to make this right? Because if you're looking for justice, it's not going to come. If you're looking for fairness, it's not going to come. If you're looking for them to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I did all that, and acknowledge all that, it's less likely to come. Now what are we going to do with you? That's where we need to begin, because that will make a difference. It's not everything they've done. I'm not denying it, and I'm not denying its impact on you. But for you to focus and have other-focused, be other-focused rather than being self-focused, that's what's going to help you move forward. Other focus is not, well, my ex, when he divorced me, and then 5 years later, they're still talking about their horrible ex. And I'm going, oh, well, they're not divorced yet. Okay. They got divorced 5 years ago, but they're not divorced yet. Because they're carrying that on. I have people that won't even say their ex's first name. Won't even say their name. And I'm going, does it hurt your ex if you don't say their name now to me? They don't care. They don't care what you're doing with their name or not. You're still holding the anger, the resentment, the pain. And when you're holding the anger, resentment, and the pain, you are pursuing them. Stop pursuing your ex.
I mean, that's kind of a enmeshment a little bit.
Not a little bit. A lot of bit.
Yeah.
Stop pursuing your ex. And every time you say, oh, I just call her the B word, I'm going, you're just pursuing her. Leave her alone. You're pursuing her with me. I know you're not trying to date her, go remarry her, or whatever you're doing. I know that. But emotionally in the system, you're still pursuing her by that approach. And you're not getting on with your life. You're still, well, I gotta keep putting them down. If you're needing to keep putting them down, you're wasting precious energy, thoughts, emotions, and you're in the wrong emotional location, and you're actually pursuing somebody you should let go of.
Yeah, not only that, it's that of like putting them down, but there's also something common that a lot of people have, which is that like proving yourself right, or like proving that you're something to them. And the thing about that, like my mindset about that is that like even if like you, I don't know, like the dream people have of like pulling up to school in like a Lamborghini in front of your ex, and like even if that does happen, like a year is going to go by, 2 years going to go by, and eventually they're not going to care anymore. And to be honest, like one day you're just not going to care anymore. And so you're chasing something that like is going to be irrelevant in like 5 to 10 years. It's like you're wasting all this energy.
Well, and then your unresolved attachments are now running your life.
Hmm.
Good luck. Because you may get the Lamborghini, but you may have 2 marriages in the process. You may get fired 2 times. You may, you can have all kinds of a tragic life to get there. What is that? Is that worth it? I mean, maybe it'll be worth it for you. I hope it is. I hope it is. But, you could just get on with your life and your purpose. And who cares whether you showed them a Lamborghini? Because 50 years from now, it's not going to matter. Trust me. And for me, 30 years from now, it's probably not going to matter or less. So it's not going to matter. Why do I want to spend my life proving, look what I did? And again, if you're trying to prove something like that, you have unresolved stuff from that relationship, which then tells me you have unresolved stuff from your family of origin. Because if you didn't have it from your family of origin, you would less likely have it with your ex. That's how powerful the family is. Because the family super self, which is what we grew up in, we all shared one big self called our family. And that self had a lot of dynamics to it. And it also has this Wi-Fi that sends out all these emotional vibes out everywhere. Just like when you're at home and let's say it wasn't such a great family life and dad was kind of a problem or angry or upset or whatever. He walks in the door and what happens to everybody? Ping. That's the family Wi-Fi. That Wi-Fi just pings everybody. Now, we don't talk about it. We don't even say it even exists. But everybody knows. Go to your family Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever dinners. Go to those dinners and see what happens. If you'll be an observer, you can actually see the anxiety passed around like a hot potato. And you can decide whether to participate in it or not. And self-differentiation is about, I don't have to participate. Did you see what your sister did, Jerry? Can you believe that? And I'm going, then I go, I think she's been that way for a long time. And I doubt if she's going to change. Hey, what's for lunch? Now I don't get pulled in and sucked into the whole family dynamics. And that dynamic follows over into adult relationships and to our parenting and to our... So the family is a very powerful thing, as it should be, but we want to learn to honor it and appreciate it so we know how to navigate our adulthood. And that's what I try to help people do, is to navigate their adulthood well. Because most of us didn't learn how to do that. We just felt guilty, shame, hurt, trauma. That's what we know, And then we do all kinds of too many relationships, too few relationships, eating, drugs, all kinds of, all kinds of things we're doing to try to feel better, And we don't know that we can actually feel better by a self-focus and a self-love and learning family, a systems way of seeing things. I think that could really that really makes a big difference. It did for me, because I was just going in circles.
Hmm.
I didn't know whether to turn right or left. And the reason why I didn't know whether to turn right or left, because I had no map. And one thing about a family systems approach is you have a better map. You can actually see the map. Here's a part of the map that I'm thinking about. Always remember there are two forces at work in every relationship. I don't care whether you go to the department store, since I'm old, or whether you call somebody on a, customer service line or whatever. Whenever two people get together, there's a togetherness force and a separateness force. Those are always working. Do you know that's always working even among the planets in our universe? Everything has this. And if you can become aware of those forces, and you knew that's what was happening, you could begin to identify, ooh, I feel like this is happening. Ooh, I better, whoa, 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 whoa. Or I feel like this is happening. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. So that we can come back to a more natural, differentiated, but connected life. And so that's one force. Those two forces are a part of the map that you can actually map out in all your relationships. How close, how much togetherness do you have, and how much separateness do you have? And it's interesting to talk to people on how they describe that.
Hmm.
And also what they think is closeness and what they think is separateness. But I try to help them get a better map to use. And then you start having fewer problems. That's you don't just keep running into the wall.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which my nose is hurting from running into the wall so many times.
Yes. Yeah. So to switch topics a little bit here, what are some of the biggest signs that you're dealing with a narcissist? You hear that? That's like a huge buzzword that's thrown
It's a
around
big
a lot.
buzzword these days. Yes, it is. And of course, I mean, some people think everybody's a narcissist, and I suppose everybody's unhealthy in some way.
Everyone has tendencies. Yeah.
Everybody has tendencies. You can be unhealthy in many different ways, and even some of that unhealth people will call narcissism, because it's just a nice little byword that's used. I think, somebody, if I'm going to kind of go with a real narcissist, I'm thinking about somebody who's does not have empathy. They can pretend empathy, but they don't have real empathy. They also, another is guilt. They don't tend to have guilt. Now, a sociopath doesn't have guilt. Psychopath doesn't have guilt. And many times a narcissist, maybe a covert narcissist, might have some guilt, maybe, but they're just not going to feel guilty like other people. They're not going to feel the empathy. They're not going to feel the guilt. And I have people come all the time and say, "Hey, Jerry, can you tell me whether I'm a narcissist or not?" And I go, "Well, I don't know that I can do that just over the phone here, but how much do you feel guilty?" "Oh, I feel guilty all the time." Probably less likely you are a narcissist if you have that kind of problem. You may be neurotic, but you may not be a narcissist. And that's probably better. You want to be a neurotic, not a narcissist. And so those kind of qualities, often there's the grandiosity, they just feel superior. They have the best ideas. They definitely they like to control others and the whole situation, because they can't afford to touch on or feel any of their shame. So they can't be seen as making a mistake. They can't. That's just way too painful for them to actually be wrong, or to do something wrong, or to hurt you. And if you talk to a narcissist and say, boy, that really hurt me the other day when you said da 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 da. How many narcissists will say, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know it hurt you in that way." That's not what a narcissist is going to say. A narcissist is going to say, "Well, either I don't remember saying that, you must have misheard what I said, or, well, I think that was in reaction to your da 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 da, which, again, it's never the narcissist's fault. It's always someone else. And so I try to be careful about narcissists, though I've gotten less worried about it. I mean, you can call anybody you want, because my work is, okay, once you've identified, let's say, some parents or a parent who's narcissist, or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever, or a partner who is a narcissist, well, that's fine. Now, okay, we got that all figured out. Now what do we do? Because that's where the real work is. It's like, the point is not that your parent's a narcissist. The point is you grew up having to deal with that. How are you dealing with that now? And how can we change how you're dealing with that? And I'm talking about that. I'm not just talking about them. If you noticed, I used the word that rather than them, because them means, oh, well, I got to change how I'm going to try to work harder to make them not be narcissists. I'm going to change them. No, that's not what you need to be changing. What you want to be working on is changing how this impacted you and how you can get that impact out of you. That's what we want. It's not changing them. Yes, you can change how you interact with them, but more than likely, it's not going to change them much, even if you interact with them differently. But it could be helpful. You could stop triggering them so much if you become aware of that. Because what good is it for me to trigger the narcissist? Why are you treating me that way, Mom? Don't you know you're a narcissist? Oh, that's an excellent thing to say to a narcissist. Now you're going to have all hell come down on you.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do that? Are you hoping she will come to Jesus in some way? Forgive my, come from a pastoral background, so come to Jesus in some way. Some awareness of insight that now she's, oh, you're so right. I didn't know I was a narcissist. I'm so sorry. That's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. And so, and I'm questioning, why do you want to get into it with her? That's your issue, not hers. How can we help you with that? Rather than how can we yell back at your mom or yell back the right words to your mom? I'd be more interested in, why are you triggered by that? You know your mother's a narcissist. You've already determined that. So what kind of relationship do you want to have with your mother narcissist? That's what you have to focus on. And you can choose whatever type of relationship you want to have. Let's just not have a unhealthy, damaging to you relationship. Let's try not to do that. If you want to stay connected to your mom and go out and have some lunches that are fine, that's fine. You can do whatever you have a right to choose what you want to do with your family. But let's not pretend that it's going to change. Now, what kind of relationship do you want to have with them? If they're not going to change, what do you want to do? That's what an adult decides. A child goes, well, they just need to change. I'm tired of being hurt. That's a child talking. An adult says, no, they are this way. I didn't make them this way. I may not even know why they're this way, but they are this way. Now, what kind of relationship do I want to have with them, and what is realistic for me to have with them in a way that is not toxic or damaging to me? That's the adult decision. And that sounds more like an adult talking than our inner child going, which is what we did when we grew up. That's what we were doing. And I can understand why. It's just we're not children anymore. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what it's like to be a child and an adult. I get that. I
Hmm.
fully am aware. So I'm not exempt from any of these things that I've been talking about. I've done them all. I've done them all and then some.
I don't think anyone's exempt. Yeah.
They aren't. We aren't. I wish.
So related to this, you have this viral YouTube video with like 1.1 million views where you discuss like 13 signs that your childhood is extremely damaging. Do you mind just going over some of the most like crucial of those signs that you had a damaging childhood that people might not realize?
And I don't even remember all the signs.
Yeah.
Because I've done a lot of videos.
Yeah.
I, probably too many, but I've done a
Hmm.
lot of videos. But I really did want to pay back to people who helped me through my own journey and learning and healing. I felt so fortunate to have them help me with a family systems approach and a self-differentiation approach because I had tried everything else that I knew, and that really made for a breakthrough for me. And so I thought I want to just share this with other people. I want to give this, and I did. And I think 500 videos or something like that. And because I wanted other people to know that they don't have to just stay stuck. In terms of the signs of that, I think of signs, I think really, okay, one way to think about it would be this. Now your question was if you grew up with a narcissistic parent or an abusive. I forgot what your question.
I was saying in
Sorry.
general, if you had a damaging childhood in general,
Damaging
like,
childhood.
yeah,
I wanted to get the right words. Damaging childhood. Because that could be a number of different problems that
yeah,
from alcoholism to abuse to narcissism to all kinds of things. And I work with all kinds of, and actually I find the universals in family systems thinking and in self-differentiation apply to all the problems. It applies to all the problems because it's what's underneath all of that. Talking about a damaging childhood, think of the child who's going through that damaging childhood. Imagine the child going through that damaging childhood and going, are they going to be treated nicely? Are people going to call them names? Are they going to be abused in some way? Are they, what's going to happen to this childhood or to this child? And then apply that to how we might feel as an adult. So when I trip over this rug in here in the hallway, and I go, oh, that was so stupid that I did that. I don't know why I did that. I know that rug's there. Why did I trip on that? Do you think that could be a sign that I may have had a more troubled childhood? Because why am I being uber critical of myself? Well, I just tripped over a rug. I mean, we all do it. I wish I hadn't. But I don't need to bash myself. So being hyper self-critical could be one of those traits of that. Being very kind of self-hating even. Not feeling worthy, self-hating. I think of another example of like a trait would be I really don't know what love is. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know what's normal. I don't know how I would feel it. So all I'm doing is just going by the seat of my pants. And I assume, love is just, well, now here's the words I'm going to use. When I get needy or feel needy and someone meets that neediness, then I'm in love. That would be a sign that you probably grew up in a more toxic or narcissistic or dysfunctional family, because that's not how love works. That's not how you decide if you're in love. I hope. Well, I certainly did, but I'm saying that's not the best way to decide. if you're in love, is if, can someone complete me? Well, why do you need completed? Well, maybe you had a dysfunctional past? Because why would you need completed? Do you know that you can be complete and want to be with someone else? A lot of people go, how do you do that? You know, no, but that's what we want to be able to do. I want to be complete and love you and want to be with you by choice, by love, by bonding in a healthy way. But I'm not falling in love with you because I'm 50% a person, you're 50% a person, and now we're 100% a person, the two of us. You don't want 50-50. You don't want a 50-50 relationship. The best is 100-100. And most of us start with a 50-50. Well, I've got all these deficits, so maybe they can fill those in. Yeah, but if I got all those deficits, where did they come from? Typically, there's been a past where those deficits have come there. I haven't felt good about myself. I don't feel confident. I'm kind of socially awkward. And now I'm having this partner, dating her or him or whatever, and they love going out and socializing. Oh, good. They'll complete me. Until you get married or in a relationship, and now they want to go out and you want to stay at home. And they're going, well, you know, that I'd like to go out. I mean, we did that when we were dating, but your natural tendency is to not. And now we have, but you got together with them because they were social. But that isn't going to last. And this people will, and they may write into you, I don't know. But they can blame me, okay? Let them blame me. I'm not blaming Brian. You blame me. The things that you fell in love with are the things that will probably cause your relationships to end. In every relationship, no. In every possible way, no. But it is those things you are attracted to if you're this defective person. If you're looking to borrow self from relationships, that borrowing of self is going to be the very thing that has you exit the relationship. And it is funny because, again, I loved you because you would say, hey, we're going to go out and be with friends. Let's go. And you went with them and you had a good time but that's not your natural. It's what she was doing or making you do. And then later that becomes the very thing. Oh, I just wish you would stay home. Why can't you just stay home? Why do you always have to go out all the time? That was the very thing you fell in love with. Now it's the very thing you don't like. I've been working with relationships for 45 years. I've seen grandparents, kids, and their kids get married. And I've watched the relationships. So I have a little bit of experience of watching how things work. Not all of them are my ideas. I'd like to think I'm a genius, but unfortunately, I've actually tried to learn some things from other people.
Yeah,
and most of what I know is other people have helped me with. Is that helpful to talk about at least a couple of those?
Yes, absolutely.
Traits.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question for you is: if you had 1 minute with your younger self, what would you tell him?
Oh my. That's a great question too. Oh goodness, how many things would I?
But it's hard to pick one, I bet.
No, it's hard to pick one, especially if you've lived a long time. Don't do this and do that. And of course,
there's a million different things. Yeah,
right. And hindsight is always 20/20. I would probably say you should get into a therapy or coaching situation now and not wait until things are all falling apart. That there's a problem, Jerry. There's some problems. You're not happy in some ways. Go and sort that out with someone who's maybe older, wiser, more knowledgeable, whatever, and work on that, because it will probably save you a lot of, as we talked earlier, banging your head against the wall or stubbing your toe or falling in the potholes. It would probably save you a lot of those. However, I must say, the potholes, the walls, the stubbing of my toe also contributed to who I am today. So, I am paradoxical about it. It's, but I would probably say, yeah, you really needed some help, and that, work to overcome the shame and get that help. Set the shame aside and ask for help. And probably, hopefully, now again, I could have had a horrible experience. Life can be a treacherous place. And I know that, but I also know that maybe trying earlier probably would have been a good thing. And I tell people, if at all you can do things earlier, do it earlier. If not, then you will probably learn to come to accept that more.
Yeah.
Life has a way of, getting your attention. Life has a way of getting your attention. And you don't have to feel ashamed that life has had to get your attention. Most people, life has had to get their attention. So you're not unusual in that way. And maybe that's what I would tell myself.